Hi everyone, and welcome to my second episode covering the figures from Awaken Realms Nemesis Lockdown. In this episode we're going to be starting on the characters, and we'll be starting with the lab rat, as you can see from the character board here. Let's get to it. Once again, I've done a Zenithal Prime, which is simply black, followed by a grey, and then a white directly from above, and I'll pop a link up in the corner. As I'm going to be going for a more speed paint approach again, I'll then give it a dry brush with some pure white. Then I'll come back and do some edge highlighting on some of the really sharp edges to really maximise that contrast. I'll kick things off with the base, where I'll be using Decayed Metal again, followed by some black metal for her boots. The skin's the only part I won't be speed painting, so I'll be using Bugmans Glow mixed with a little black, as you can see here. I'll do a quick bit of tidying up before adding the contrasts. Fortunately for you, I stupidly forgot to press record when I started doing the trousers, which means you won't make the same mistake that I did by trying to blend Shyish Purple with Magos Purple. If I was you, I'd just use pure Magos Purple when it comes to this. The Shyish was far too opaque in the shadows. I did, however, add some Basilicanum Grey and lots of contrast medium to the Shyish Purple to create a glaze to put over a blindfold. For her hair, I used 2 parts Basilicanum Grey and 1 part Shyish Purple, and I kept some contrast medium on hand so that I could thin it out to help broaden those highlights and create a nice sense of contrast and texture. Next up, I'll be using some Snakebite Leather for her belt and the various straps on her arms and legs. I'll then coat the girder in with 4 parts Gryph-Charger Grey and 1 part Basilicanum. I might throw in some Nazdreg Yellow for some interest. Finally, for her straitjacket, I'll be painting that in Apothecary White mixed with a little bit of Aethermatic Blue. Before then giving her boots a wash in pure Nuln Oil. You could of course call your figure done here, or join me now for some highlights and finishing touches. Beginning with the boots, where I'll be using heavy metal initially, followed by adding a spot of pure white to it to give it those final bright glints. For the skin, I'll use Cadian Flesh for the mid-tone, followed by Kislev Flesh for the highlight, and I might add a little bit of Ivory at the end to really push those values up. This is now the pure Kislev Flesh, which I'll focus more towards the chin area, tip of her nose, knuckles and such. For the straitjacket, I mixed some Aethermatic Blue into a little bit of Ivory. I then decided to add a small amount of black to half of this so that I could build this up in a couple of layers. This is now the brighter of the two tones. As I did with the larvae, I'll mix a little bit of ivory in with each of the base contrast tones to create some nice bright highlights. After the highlighting, I decided to do some black lining to help better define some of the features of the figure. Followed by base coating the two cables on the girder in white as well as the light to get ready for some object source lighting effects. I then used Blood Angels Red and Militarium Green respectively for the cables. For the light on the girder, I used roughly equal parts of Aethermatic Blue and contrast medium to create a glaze, which I then built up over several layers, drying completely in between them with a hairdryer in order to speed the process along. Finally giving it one last spot of white in the centre, and then giving it a final glaze to really boost that saturation. I'll then add one last point of pure white to really help sell the effect. Followed by mixing a light grey out of some black and white to add some final edge highlights. There's just the base left to do now, and I'll finish this in the same way as I did the larvae, by giving it a dry brush with some Thrash Metal and then a wash with 2 parts Nuln Oil and 1 part Agrax Earthshade. I must be mad, but while that's drying, I'm going to use some Inktense Black to try and draw on some of the markings on her straitjacket, including the QR code and her prisoner number, if that is what that is. And when the wash is dried, I'll give it a dry brush with some Ryza Rust, followed by some little touches of Nihilakh Oxide for some nice weathering and corrosion effects, before finally painting the rim black and giving the whole miniature a coat in some ultramatte varnish. And this completes the lab rat, and I do hope that you've enjoyed the episode, and if you have, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to all our future content. A full list of paints used is on your screen now as always. The next episode in the series will be back to the Night Stalkers and we'll be tackling the Creepers. But until next time folks, bye for now.